Hey, Jeff, nice to see you again. Thanks for joining me today for another one of our wonderful Envision Strategies thought leadership conversations. And I've been waiting to have this conversation with you for a while, but I actually think it's going to be an even better conversation because you've had some time to sit in your new partnership, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But before we get started, would you mind introducing yourself and talking a little bit about your role at Lafayette?
Yeah, sure. Jeff Labe, Assistant Vice President for Operations here at Lafayette College. We're located in Easton, Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of New York. Um, I oversee all of the auxiliary operations at Lafayette and our facilities department as well. So, quite a large portfolio of different services across the campus supporting our 2,700 students in every way.
Awesome. And I think that when you and I first started working together, you were brand new to your role, right? So, I mean, I think I got you on day 2 or day 3 maybe when you started, right?
I think I met you before I met some people on campus.
That's right, that's right. So why don't we talk a little bit about, again, I know it's been a bit of time and we'll talk through that part, but tell me a little bit about the project that you and I worked together on. It was titled, a limited request for proposal, right? So we actually did an RFP process, but we didn't do this grand RFP process where we send it out to everyone and anyone. You had kind of a pointed response that you were looking for, and we invited a few companies to bid on the program, but tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, exactly. So about 2.5 years ago, we realized internally that we needed to reevaluate our dining program, and the vendor that had had a relationship with us for many years worked very closely with you for for many weeks and months, analyzing data and really taking a deep dive into our program at Lafayette, what we wanted to see in the future and how we wanted to shape it with a new vendor. And so we embarked on this limited RFP, intentionally seeking out a few vendors to bid on the project that we thought were well aligned with the college and what our expectations were with the future. And received a great response, and worked closely with you and Envision, obviously, to solicit feedback that was helpful for us to make that decision.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into that process, and it happened pretty quickly. I can't believe it's already been 2.5 years. You look great. You haven't aged a day, actually. You look
I
fantastic.
know the gray hair says otherwise, but
So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you were facing with the dining program leading up to the decision to go out to limited RFP.
yeah, I think they were multifaceted, right? Some of them were more of the standard budgetary constraints and financial concerns that I think a lot of organizations have faced with their dining program. But more so, it was our campus and community feedback that we were receiving at different levels, both from students, faculty, and staff, and from our larger community about how the dining program was evolving, where we wanted to see improvements, what our shortcomings were, and how could we get dining into a more modernized state that aligned with what more institutions around the country were doing.
We did some assessment work on your program really to uncover some of the things that were challenging the program at the time. And Lafayette is a beautiful campus. I mean, really just such a great feel. And we found some unique challenges, which again, we'll talk about during our conversation today. But tell me some of the things that you discovered as part of our work together that helped you ultimately in making this decision to, which you did, move to a new partner in dining.
Yeah, I think the primary thing I would lean on is really stakeholder engagement, right? We took a lot of intentional time to go around campus, solicit feedback from different groups of people. And as a result of that, we got really concrete feedback as to how the dining program should evolve. Some of it was um, self-inflicted wounds kind of, right? We had a common lunch hour, so everybody came to the dining venues all at once, and it overwhelmed our serving areas and our seating capacity. We also are, I think, unique, and we have 7 dining venues. So there are many different options across campus, for our students, but they were gravitating towards 2 main dining halls where we didn't have sufficient seating for everybody in that hour time. So those kind of things, helped us, understand what we needed to do to reallocate dining resources, for our future planning.
Yeah, I think that the common hour piece was really a unique piece, and it's not unique to campuses that we visit and that we work with, but it was creating very significant challenges on campus for you as everyone was emptying those classroom spaces at the exact same time and hitting the exact same two dining halls, as you mentioned, at the exact same time. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but is the common hour still in play right now?
So our academics division has made some tweaks so that the common hour is not all students all at once coming into our dining halls. And right, obviously that was an academic decision that greatly benefited dining, and as a result, we've seen positive feedback off of that. I also think, and jumping ahead here a little bit, but some menu management at our other dining venues, how we offer meal plans around campus, re-envisioning those aspects of dining also helped shift campus populations to different venues around campus.
Yeah, that's a great point. It wasn't, any one given outcome. I think you learned I mean, I saw you kind of learning so much as you went through the process in what you wanted to do to shape the dining program on campus. So, it was really an opportune time to have you brand new in that role. It was almost like when we come onto campus, we provide this kind of fresh eyes perspective, but you were also the fresh eyes perspective at the time because it was a program that was so brand new to you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like a team effort, and having that support from, in particular from you, was crucial to the success of our project, because not only was I new to campus, but having that external lens as to what other campuses are doing, and how they're facilitating these RFPs was critical. Our timeline was short, intentionally, and we knew that. So we knew what we were getting ourselves into, but at the same time, having the ability to pull from that resource of knowledge, and data that you guys had was critical to our success.
So, when you were in this process of, again, being new to your role and jumping right into this limited RFP, talk to me a little bit about how you built partnerships on campus and really got buy-in from the campus as to these changes that you were doing. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Easton as well, because I think that's a really big part of the dining community there too.
Yeah, as I mentioned, stakeholder engagement was paramount to the success of this project. And we reached out to the campus community in a few different ways. Our dining committee had been on hold for many years, mostly because of COVID. And so when I started, that was one of my primary goals, was to resurrect that committee. It's an immediate channel for feedback. It gets me FaceTime with students, faculty, and staff. And it provides that pipeline for other students to provide feedback. So we quickly resurrected that committee, got immediate feedback. But I spent a lot of time traveling around campus, right? And as you noted, I was new to the position, so it was kind of doubly beneficial. I was able to meet a lot of people on campus, but as a result of being new, I think I was able to get candid feedback from folks about what they were seeing in the dining program, what they wanted to see, and how they wanted to see it evolve. Um, I think the other thing that we were able to do is some focus groups, some surveying around campus, solicit as much feedback as possible. We wanted this to be a transparent process that the community felt that they were involved in, that they had a say in, and that they understood the outcome when we reached it.
And I think another thing that just on that same point that was really important at that time, because as you mentioned, we were in kind of a limited time frame to get this accomplished, was seeing the dining operations in action at all of those key times and really like kind of living the experience of the student, faculty, and staff users on campus. Because if you're just looking at data, which is a huge part of it, but if you're just looking at the data or you're just having the focus groups and you're not seeing what the actual struggles or wins, frankly, of the student are in how they use dining in their program, I think that would have been a big miss. But we actually got to see that together. We spent time in those spaces during all the key dining parts, and even during downtime to see how the students were utilizing the space. And it kind of really reframed our idea of what needed to happen to make the program run more smoothly.
Yeah, it's critical, and I talk to students and their parents about this all the time, about how vital it is to be in the dining operations, right? We spend a lot of time in the office, we spend a lot of time looking at spreadsheets. That's not where you get the best information, right? I want to live the experience that the students live. So most days you will see me, and we did this before, during, and I still do it today. You'll see me out in the dining halls. I want to interact with the students. I want to interact with the dining staff. What's working? What's not working? Where do we need to discuss changes? And I think that helps with the transparency. I think in my position, being visible helps with the partnership with dining, and it improves our overall relationship.
And you also get to hear some pretty interesting stuff just listening to the students talk, right, when they're, in dining halls. I remember we were, in one of the dining halls at lunch, and there were these large round tables, right, and students weren't necessarily sitting next to each other at the large round tables, but then they were saying there's nowhere to sit because some of them were even choosing at that time to sit on the floor or to, like, kind of walk out and sit outside to do it. So it's really interesting to hear their feedback, in real time, and I think that that was a really valuable part of the process. Tell me a little bit about, from the perspective of where your campus is, one of the unique things I loved about Lafayette, and it's something that I talk to a lot of our other, campuses and clients about, is your ability to draw the campus community restaurant scene and dining scene into your meal plan. So I remember mapping that out very specifically, all of the places that were able to be used on the meal plan, which really expanded your reach and the students' reach, as to what they were able to get out of their meal plan. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, it's Lafayette really prioritizes our connection to the Easton community, and really to the Lehigh Valley. We have a special relationship with the residents of Easton and many businesses that are in our downtown, and we have a great restaurant scene down there. And so when the students come to campus, right, obviously we want them to be on campus, we want them to utilize our dining program, but we also want them to have the flexibility of what's around us, and we want to be good community partners. And so we have constantly been examining local businesses. How can we fold them into our dining program? How can we make our dining dollars, which are par dollars, available to the students at off-campus locations? So we intentionally look to build that program. And just in the past year or so, we actually switched to the Grubhub platform for that very reason. It improves the ability for our students to use their dining dollars off campus. It also improves our connection to the community, and we've developed strong relationships with many of the local restaurants as a result.
And the students, do you get feedback from them talking about how they feel about the ability to use dining dollars as part of their meal plan?
The students love that ability and that flexibility to be able to, when they don't want to eat in the dining hall, when they're down in Easton doing something else, that they can use their ID card to make a purchase. And then I think the other thing that it adds for the students is additional variety, right? There may be restaurants down in Easton that with items we don't serve on campus, and so I think it adds benefit to the meal plan.
Yeah, you had a lot of cuisines that couldn't necessarily be easily represented on campus in the most authentic way, and some of the feedback that your students gave was that they were looking for, that authenticity, so being able to, A, be a good community partner, and boost sales and recognition of those locations, but then also take some of the pressure off of the campus dining partners to be perfect in some, dining operations that they might not really have a lot of, experience in. I think that was really a great part of it, and you all do that, really frankly so well. When we talk to other partners, sometimes there is a fear of, "Oh, will all of our dining dollars go to another place on campus?" But actually, we found your students re-upping more dollars because they were able to use them in other places, so there was a good mix of what they used on campus versus what they used off campus.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see much slippage in our usage on campus, at all. To your point, I think the students add more part dollars onto their account because they realize that those dollars go further, right? They have more ability to use them on campus and off campus, and so it's a huge perk. We also see it with our faculty and staff, adding dollars onto their cards because they realize that there is flexibility to use them, in multiple locations.
It's great. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit, through the, uh, tedious part, if you will, of the building of the RFP document set that we worked on together. We saw a lot of each other during that time, but you also, I think that was, again, great opportunity for you to learn about your program because we had to ask a lot of questions to make certain that the information we were getting out to the suppliers bidding on the program was accurate and was as kind of robust as possible so that they were responding to the actual needs of Lafayette's community. But one of the things that we talked about was kind of giving you the heads up early on that if you were to have made a change, which you did ultimately make a change, that the first year was not going to be just, shake hands and good luck, Jeff, let me know how everything goes. We talked even a lot in that first year because we talked about the fact that they don't know where all the skeletons are, right? So a new campus partner learning a dining program, learning the ins and outs of what is important in catering, what is important to students, what the cadence of, the dining system kind of needs to be to feed that specific community. We had to give them grace in that beginning period. And I remember I do that with everyone, but I remember cautioning you on that. How was the first year?
Yeah, those first couple months, right? I'm always transparent. Those first couple months were rough, and I think it's really about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and not the tunnel, right? We have developed such a good working relationship with our new dining vendor, and I think part of that process was those first few months, right? We were uncovering things that neither of us knew about. We were reshaping the program. We were getting to know the campus, and I think doing that intentionally and with a strong partnership has made the program successful now. And right, it always every dining transition is hard, right? I don't think anybody would dispute that. There's always things that you find out. There's always mistakes that are made. But I think the lessons we learned and the ability to partner together to implement those changes has really proved to be the success of the dining program that it is today.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you did really well, and this is, this can go either way, even when you caution that that first year is not going to be easy, you backed your new dining partner up. So you were a unified kind of response and stance when things were happening that weren't happening perfectly, or that, there were bumps in the road that you specifically, but also Lafayette as a partner to its dining partner, kind of took a stance together and said, "Hey, we know that it's not perfect yet, but we want to hear your voices. We want to know what's going on so that we can work together to fix it. And we feel really confident that our new partner is going to do that." And that was consistent messaging through the process, even in conversations with student government or conversations in the local news, like the student newspaper, you were really great with that.
Yeah, I think we intentionally made this change. We made the decision and we needed to own it with our new dining partner. And I use the term partnership with them all the time and how important that is that we're a unified front. One of somebody on campus actually a few months ago thought for a second that I worked for Parkhurst because we are such a unified front in our communications, and I think that's critical, right? Because we want to be delivering the same message, right? And we have to have difficult conversations between the college and our dining vendor all the time, right? We're negotiating, we're working things out, but having that unified message to the campus community and really supporting them through difficult times like they support us, I think is critical. And the students, faculty, and staff saw that, and I think it helped them understand the transitions are difficult, but we can get through this together, and we've reaped the benefits from it now.
But tell me about some, and you can be high level with this, but tell me about some of the challenges in that first year and how you kind of work together on both sides to overcome those. Give me a few examples.
Yeah, I think the first one, it was staffing challenges, right? When you have a dining program that switches vendors, right? Some staff will stay on, some staff won't. We had to work closely to find the right people to be in the right positions that really benefited the campus community. I think some of it was menu management, right? We had heard from the community that they wanted to see significant menu changes. Some of them worked and some of them didn't work, right? And we were able to quickly pivot. I think the other component was communicating out how we were going to make improvements, right? You can't do everything in the first year, but there was an intentional path that we were putting together to introduce new dining concepts, put together new menus, offer new items to the students that they hadn't had in the past. And so I think really getting out into the community and explaining what the path forward looked like helped us along the way.
Yeah, and you did I mean, you speak of those things and those things couldn't all happen at one time, right? So really, we've been talking a lot internally as a team, but also with others about the idea of change management and how you've got to actually um, communicate and manage the process, and that it's not a surprise to the people out in, that are going to be the end users of this process that you've got, and that it can't all happen like snap your fingers and it's just done, especially because you did this RFP fairly quickly. So you really needed to, with your new partner, spend some time listening to the students afterward and hearing what was important to them, and then integrating that into your process, right? So you also did quite a bit of renovation of your spaces. You want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you did renovation wise?
Yeah, we were very intentional, right, that communication channel didn't end when the RFP process ended. It continues to this day in many of the same ways. And often you and I connect and we discuss that feedback and how things are going. And as a result of that feedback, particularly from our students, we were able to recognize what they wanted to see on campus. And many campuses are looking to modernize their dining venues and add components that the students are seeing off campus. And so we, through surveys and focus groups and that direct interaction with our community, we realized two things that were paramount to what the students wanted to see. One was an improved coffee shop experience. And so we now have a Proudly Brewing Starbucks as one of our venues. It's a great venue. The students love it, and it gets a tremendous amount of use every day. For a campus with 2,700 students, we're seeing about 1,000 students go in there a day. So that coffee shop is busy. It can handle the capacity, and it looks great. And it's what the students are used to seeing off campus. So they just flock to it. The other venue that we added was a modern Mexican concept, which the students had also requested, right? They're used to seeing those concepts off campus. They're extremely popular, and it immediately took off. I don't think the doors were open for 10 minutes, and we were seeing, hundreds of students use that for each meal. And not only did those two new venues get great reviews, but it helped take the pressure off some of our other dining venues that, as we mentioned, during common lunch hour, other times were being overwhelmed because of seating capacity or just natural progression through the serving line. And the students now had new options that were part of the meal plan on campus, and it really created a nice flow for dining.
Such a smart use of space. I mean, you that this concept, your Mexican concept, which is a bowl concept, right? Like you can kind of do it in a bowl or otherwise, but was in a new part of campus that you had just built, right? So it drew people to a new part of campus, and was really also conveniently located on the edge of campus, but it drew attention away from where things had kind of bottlenecked, because it was a great concept and people flocked to it. And I remember when you and I were talking about piloting it and you didn't know how it was going to go, and I mean, it just picked up immediately, right? Which took such great pressure off of the dining hall at lunch.
Yeah, it was so well received, and the placement was very advantageous to us, right? It was in a relatively new dorm on the lower level. We had plans to build additional dorms near that. It was also very close to our off-campus housing. So there were a tremendous number of students in that area, right? And one of the complaints, right, on every college campus, I have to walk so far. It never is really that far, but when you put a dining venue at their front door, so to speak, it really improves the feedback that you get from students.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, it's been like you said, 2.5 years. What did you learn in this process kind of together? What did you learn? What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, I think right for every dining program, budgetary and financial concerns are important, right? So I'm not gonna brush that off to the side. Those were obviously key components to our learning process, but I really think transparency and communication were the two things that I would lean on most importantly. I think letting the community know what we're doing, how we're doing it, what the end result is going to be, and including them in that process was so critical to our success. And then communicating out, whether it's us communicating out as the college, whether it's ensuring our dining partners communicating out, and maintaining that strong level of partnership that we talked about a minute ago, so that we have a unified message and that we're all beating the same drum to support our dining program and in the end support our students.
And how about things that you would have maybe done differently in the process?
Yeah, you and I talk about this all the time. I would have given us more time, right? I
Me
think,
too.
uh,
Too.
yeah, obviously without your support, I've said this many times. I don't know that we would have been able to do it in that tight time frame. But I think in some ways the tight time frame really helped us hone in on what we were looking for, do data analysis quickly, and make those informed decisions. But if being transparent, I think I would recommend additional time definitely for the RFP process, so that you can really get that community engagement, get that data analysis, spend time with all of the stakeholders a little bit more. I think looking back now, 2.5 years later, I feel great about where we are, and I feel great about the process. And I think my advice would always be it's never as bad as it seems in the moment, and you'll get through it, and the dining program will be better as a result of it.
Well, thanks for the nod. I think that that was a team effort. I think that we were committed to spending the amount of time together needed in that short period of time to get kind of find unique ways to get to the answers that we were looking for. And I think that we got you to where you needed to be. You all really were so involved in the process, and things were ever changing through that very short window of time too. I will also say that setting the tone with the partner that you ended up working with and making certain that they understood that we needed to be quick on our feet to respond and through that RFP process until until the ink is dry on a contract, it's still open, right? So we really needed to get answers back quickly, and we needed them to, I hate to go back to an old 2020 term, but we needed to be able to pivot quickly, right, to get things to where they needed to be, because the proposal is just the jumping off point. um, and what goes into the proposal often isn't the actual end result. You've got to have conversations after the fact, and you've got to say, "Hey, we liked this, but we also kind of were thinking more something along these lines," and have a supplier that's willing to work with you to get to where you need to be.
And I think pivoting, right, is a phrase we probably don't want to use
Mm.
anymore.
Yeah.
But change is difficult, right? And some changes work and are accepted quickly, and other changes take those tweaks to make them successful. And that's really what we were looking for in a dining partner: is how can you come in and respond to our feedback? We know everything's not going to work. We know some things will require additional input on the college side, additional resources, etc. And how can you work with us as a dining vendor to make that partnership happen?
Yeah, that's great. So, we talked I'm gonna pivot away a little bit from your engagement right now and talk a little bit about, for years we had this looming enrollment cliff, right? And we had the idea that higher education obviously is changing on its face. It feels like every single day right now. How do you think your program, and we're talking about the program as it stands today, not the program as a result of the RFP, but how do you think dining is helping, the student experience on campus at Lafayette?
Yeah, I mean, dining is critical to the student experience, right? It's one of the first questions that students ask when they come to visit campus. How's the food? Where do you eat, right? And our students, who are tour guides, obviously take them around to all of our different dining venues. Um, and that's where it's so critical that we have a dining partner that is willing to make those changes, willing to modernize our dining program, willing to pivot quickly, and willing to align with what the students are not only seeing at other colleges they're visiting, but what they're seeing out in the real world, because that's what students expect now on campus as part of their student life experience. And so the changes we have made, I think, have really responded well, to the students that visit campus, the students that are interested in coming to Lafayette, and I think pave the way for future dining improvements, to really showcase what our dining vendor and what our partnership is capable of.
You just reminded me, Jeff, that I went undercover on your campus and took a tour. As not we didn't do as a parent that time. We did as a guidance counselor, a high school counselor, Rob and I. And it is fascinating to hear what tour guides, and I would actually, just as a side note, recommend to anyone watching this to take your campus tour. If it, or send someone that if you're very well recognized, to take your campus tour, because that's real what the students are saying. And I just, if you recall, went through. I have twin boys that are in college now, as you know, and went through many, many campus tours as a parent just 2 short years ago, and I love listening to what students say about dining because what you feel or what you think is going on as a client in dining is not necessarily what your student workers and the students that are working on your campus are communicating. So it's really important to hear that message, not so that you can shape the script, but so that you can actually get the feedback and hear kind of what they really think.
Oh yeah, as I've said, right, the student experience and student feedback is critical to our success, right? And in this age of social media and things popping up online, you have to be careful how you view all of that in comparison to what's actually happening on the ground. And as you said, talking to the students, being in the dining venues is the way to do that because then you're seeing it firsthand. You're not reading somebody's post and trying to extrapolate an opinion out of that.
Absolutely. So tell me, just you've been in your role now for also 2.5 years, so congratulations. And I would love to know how do you stay connected with the campus community, not just in dining, but how do you stay connected to what's going on in the campus community, and how about with your own staff and people that you work with on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think FaceTime is such an important part of my role here. And we always say we can never get out of the office. We're always in meetings. I intentionally make sure that I am seen out and around campus. I think those casual interactions are almost more important than the formal meetings. Getting people's feedback, understanding what's happening around campus firsthand is how we can implement change effectively. And I'm really more of a hands-on type person, hands-on leader, trying to implement those changes around campus, showing by example, I think is incredibly important.
It's great. We're gonna wrap up in a minute or two, Jeff, but I would love to know, as we're kind of going to a wider audience here, what recommendations do you have for colleagues that are looking to go to RFP? You've already said give it more time. That's always the ideal, but what else would you say?
Yeah, I think, and right, I've as you said, I've said this to many colleagues and continue to do so. I think finding the right consultant to help you along the way is just so critical to your success. You don't know everything going into it. You don't know what the rest of the world, so to speak, is doing, and getting that insight from experts that have been around the country and around the world who can share that data and share that perspective was so important to us, right? You get caught, we call it in our bubble, right? And you start to get caught in your own data and your own expectations, and you kind of lose sight of what might be happening in other places. And so choosing that partner, because the consultant really is a partner for us, just like our dining provider, it was critical to our success, and we couldn't have done it otherwise.
Thanks, Jeff. I didn't even ask you to say that, so that's really nice of you.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
I've said that to many people about you. There's several of us that worked closely with you here at Lafayette during the process, and the entire process was just so beneficial to us, and we still keep in touch to this day.
That's right. So as we close up here, if people want to check out Lafayette and want to check out the dining program, how can they take a look at what's going on there?
Yeah, I'd encourage everyone to go onto our website, lafayette.edu, take a look at our dining program, take a look at all that we're doing within auxiliary services here at Lafayette. There's tons of great information on our website.
And it's most important as we end our conversation today, because you are yet another wonderful Pennsylvania friend, and you know that I am now in Mystic, Connecticut, missing the sports scene. Very lacking here in Mystic, Connecticut. Lovely, lovely sea, like a lot of water views, but not a lot of sports. So let's just end this with go Phils and go Birds.
Go Phils, go Birds.
Thanks, Jeff. It was great to talk to
Great,
you today.
great to see you, Mindy.
Thanks.